Sifter for the ear.
News, interviews, reviews, cinema, TV, streaming. Action!
Hi, y'all. This is Jerry Williams, a.k.a. TV Jerry. Cinema Collective is Richmond Film Network's monthly workshop designed to bring together filmmakers and film-adjacent creatives to connect and spark meaningful collaborations. Their next will feature 2 live table reads of 2 short original films, and it'll take place at the Hoff on February 25th, and I'll have a link on the webpage for this show at TV Jerry.
So who are you?
Oh, who am I? Well, I'm Jan Kahn. I've always been a misfit in the normal world, but I found a place for misfits.
Every climber who climbs in the Needles knows who the Kahns are.
They were prolific first ascensionists and the pioneers of the area.
The Kahns mapped and discovered over 60 miles of Jewel Cave.
The level at which the Kahns climbed and caved, especially for the time period, was wild.
That was an excerpt from the trailer of the first of 2 documentaries that'll be playing at this year's RVA Environmental Film Festival. It's called Catching Pine Cones and tells the story of pioneering rock climbers, cavers, and nature preservationists Jan and Herb Kahn. They began their explorations in Virginia and lived off the grid for nearly 70 years. Director Chad Heddleson will be joining me. After he's done, we'll head down to the James River for All Forward, which profiles an intensive training program for river rafting guides in Richmond, where we have the nation's only Class 3 and 4 urban whitewater. Justin Black, who was on the show with his documentary Headwaters Down, is back to talk about this new one.
Sifter Review of the Week.
The Beauty on Hulu. Bella Hadid opens the series playing a model who demonstrates the deadly results of a new drug that makes the recipient young and beautiful. It's great while it lasts, but ends up with the person exploding, literally. If this sounds a bit outrageous, consider that it's from the creative cranium of Ryan Murphy. Like the graphics that announce each glam city in large type, this series takes big swings in concept and execution. Being that it's Murphy, you can expect outrageous moments, intense violence, hot sex, and plenty of shirtless buff men. There's also a plot or two. Evan Peters plays the FBI agent trying to find the source of this potential plague. Anthony Ramos is a charmingly evil contract killer stamping out unwanted patients. And Ashton Kutcher turns out to be the baddest. The series makes wild, wicked fun at the current obsession with looks and is Murphy at his sensationalist best. This review is based on 4 out of 11 one-hour episodes. I gave The Beauty 4 out of 5 stars. So Chad Heddleson, welcome to Sifter for the Year.
Oh, thank you, Jerry.
I'm assuming, considering the subject of the movie, have you free soloed or climbed?
I have climbed a lot, yes. I'm not big into free soloing. It's not my jam, but I do enjoy rock climbing, and that's where I came from with this film.
Well, it's interesting. One of my favorite types of films are horror films and suspense films, and it's pretty hard to scare me anymore because I've seen a lot of them, but a few years back, I went to Movie Land to see Free Solo, and that was one of the scariest films I've seen in a long time. I'm sure you've seen it, right?
Oh, of course. I've seen all of them.
Did you see Skyscraper?
I did see the Netflix special. At least I saw the Instagram recap. I knew it wouldn't be too much of a challenge for him.
Why do you say it wouldn't be a big challenge for him? Because that's pretty easy building?
Yeah, because he's been doing it for 20 years. And the difficulty is there for most folks, definitely. But when you're an elite climber and you do that all the time, you're not scared. And coming at it as a climber, you build those experience levels. And for somebody like that, it's, not such a big deal.
Nothing you'd ever try.
No, I don't think so.
Catching Pine Cones is the name of the film. And you said this was a passion project of yours for 10 years?
Yeah, believe it or not. So I sort of fell in love with the Kahn story back as a younger climber in like the early 2000s, where I followed them up a lot of routes that they had done in the mid-Atlantic region right here in Virginia and around. And I was like, man, how does a person do that? What they did, just truly follow their folly and go after it and do it for your whole life. And so I was really interested in the story and had made a mockumentary about climbing. And that saw a tiny amount of success in the tiny world that it lived in.
And what was that called?
It was called Almost Alpine. We didn't enter in any film festivals or anything, but it literally won one. Well, in 2024, we got
Great.
notified that we had won a film festival.
Oh, cool. Great.
But yeah, that was ages ago. And in 2015, I went out to meet Jan, and I just thought, this is real living history, a person that was a pioneer in this area that I love, that I've been guiding professionally. I've been, sort of following my dreams in the climbing world, and I can meet her and talk to her and hear her stories. And, maybe she would be interested in making a film. So I got a hold of friends and they said, oh, yeah, send her a letter or give her a phone call. And so we communicated for a while before I went out to meet her and was able to record her. She said, yeah, you go ahead and film if you'd like. I don't know what you're going to do with all this, but it's fun talking to you. And she was super sweet and just an absolute legend in the climbing world,
Yeah,
her
yeah.
and her husband.
Well, speaking of that, let me rewind a little bit there and ask you, tell us about Jan and Herb and how you found them.
Yeah, Jan and Herb were the legendary climbers from the DC area in the 1940s. And they climbed everything before anybody else was born. They kind of went up and down the East Coast and traveled around in a little van.
Lived in the van.
They lived in it for several years.
Yeah.
And they went all over the country, and Jan was specifically called the most notable woman climber by the luminaries in the Sierra Club out in California. So it's kind of the Yosemite crew. They went out and climbed with them for like a summer and climbed all over the West. And then they settled in South Dakota. They really seemed to follow their dreams 100%. Way before people were doing van life or living this dirtbag climber lifestyle that is a popular thing today. And so they did that for a while, and then they just totally changed gears and did caving in the same way. They discovered 65 miles of Jewel Cave and mapped everything. And it was just always about this exploration. Like, what more can we learn? What more can we see and do? And how do we do that without doing all the extra stuff that people have to do? They lived off the grid. They lived sustainably. Well, they lived totally off the grid, not 100% sustainably, but they did that basically their whole life. Never had electricity until the very end. And it was just such an interesting story. And I was like, how come this hasn't been told? So let me go talk to Jan. And, she's open to hosting climbers still in 2015. She's like, oh, yeah, come on out and talk. We'd love to chat. So we met and talked climber to climber and just kind of hung out for a few days. And she said, the story's all out there, but if you want to put it together as a documentary, go ahead. That's fine.
So you mentioned that climbing lifestyle, and you live in Richmond. There's not a whole lot of climbing around here other than some of those quarries down in Belle Island. So I guess you travel a lot all over the place?
I actually live in Roanoke, which is the closest major city in Virginia to the New River Gorge in West Virginia,
which
where
is
there's
amazing.
phenomenal rock climbing. But also, I've lived all over Virginia, and my co-creator making this film, Parker Michaels Boyce, lives in Richmond, and he's been absolutely instrumental. He's a phenomenal cinematographer and photographer. He and I kind of got involved with this thing together and made it happen. As a passion project with no budget. We just kind of went for it.
Is he the video guy and you're just the climber guy, or do you have a video background as well?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I've played around with video and made lots of YouTube videos and made this one documentary.
Yeah, right.
I thought all of this story is out there. There's lots of bits and pieces of archival footage. I mean, there was this incredible footage from the DC area from the 40s.
I know, it was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was incredible footage from the 60s in South Dakota. We knew those things were out there, and we're just like, well, all we really have to do is put it together, but let's go hear the stories from Jan.
Yeah.
So let's get that modern footage. And I'm a licensed drone pilot, and I can film on these towers, and we get these incredible scenic shots looking down from above in these dramatic towers that they climbed that were hundreds of feet tall and really groundbreaking for the time. And even now, they scare the heck out of people.
There was a documentary that was mentioned in yours about one done in the 60s. So what did y'all add to that one? Obviously, updating it.
Yeah, so that one, well, there was no audio. Originally, there was a narration written. We couldn't locate it. There was the one in the 40s. We just kind of put all the pieces together of their life. There was one actually produced in 1989 by South Dakota Public Broadcasting. And then another little thing that came out much later, also through South Dakota Public Broadcasting. And we just thought, well, we can put all these together with Jan's help, and she can link all the connections for us, and we can get this whole life story. Because that's the most incredible thing about it is, how do people who fall in love with these adventure sports, how do they progress through their whole life and continue living the dream, which is what we all hope to do, I think.
And I noticed in the documentary, there are a number of times where you see a photograph of the mountain or the peak or whatever it is, and then there's a little trail going up it. So is that something that is actually happens in the rock climbing world? When somebody does scale something new, they somehow keep some kind of diagram or record of how they did it so other people can know where to get the good places to stand and stuff like that?
Yeah, exactly. And we took some liberties with those in our film because they didn't really draw specific route maps. They kind of just did the easiest way up the particular spire. So their descriptions would be like, start in the obvious chimney on the east face, wrap around to the north on pitch 2, and then summit via the west ridge or something. So they would have these very general descriptions, but that's a 300-foot tower. So
Yeah.
you get out there and you're like, well, what is the obvious chimney? This thing is 100 feet in diameter at the base, and I'm somewhere on the south side. So there's always a bit of adventure climbing on the con route.
Uh-huh.
That's one of the reasons people still get very excited on them and have a grand adventure. They were very staunch leaders in the ethics of free climbing. They didn't free solo without ropes, but they also didn't ever fall.
I know. That's incredible. The whole movie. I'm like, okay, when is it going to happen?
Yeah. They used these old ropes, and they're just tied around their waist so they could break your back if you fell.
Right.
And so they would down climb if they got into a challenging position, and then send the other one up. You know, Jan say, "Hey, Herbie, why don't you try this one out?" And he'd say, "Okay, Janny, your turn." And he'd climb down, and she'd climb up, or vice versa. And they would work their way through these challenging sections. And then when they got to the top, a modern climber will usually just clip a rope through these bolts, permanent anchors that are placed up there.
Oh, okay.
And they'll rappel down. Well, the cons actually down climbed. And that was like the highest ethic that you could have. We're not going to even leave anything on the summit. Although they did put summit registers up there. So
those little boxes of whatever. Yeah.
yeah. There's always been registers at the tops of mountains since the first ascent, usually. And so they would put these tiny little registers with a tiny little pencil, and you sign, and there are actually some still out there with their names first on the list, still weathering the storms out there in South Dakota.
Now, just for the listener, because I saw the documentary, but they haven't seen it, what exactly does that mean, register? So basically, it's people just, when they summit that particular thing, they write their name on a list that's in a little box up there somewhere.
Yeah, and they might say, cold day, February 12th, but it's a beautiful sunset up here. Now we got to get the heck down. Something like that, where
right.
Just a record of who's been up, and they put their names in probably thousands of registers across the country, many of which were first ascents of theirs. So you still find these things out on these various summits, and even in the DC area or West Virginia, where they first climbed, and even in Virginia, you'll find old pitons that were left, and they would hammer these in as protection. And modern climbers use free climbing tactics, which are a little less invasive for the rock. You put the gear in, and then you take it back out, and it doesn't involve hammering.
And those are like the metal spikes?
Yeah, those are metal spikes.
Because I'm from Florida, we used to call pecans, so or pecans. Anyway.
Surprise guest drop in.
Somebody wants to drop in and say hello here to talk about the festival a little bit.
Hello, Jerry. Hello, Chad.
Awesome to talk to you, Keith.
Footnote.
Keith Elliott is the president of the RVA Environmental Film Festival.
Yeah, congratulations, Chad, on being our first place winner for the film contest this year.
Thank you.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the festival.
This year's festival kicks off on Saturday, February 21st at Studio 23. And then the next day, and we'll have 15 films total there. And two of those will be our contest winners, Chad's film, Catching Pine Cones, and Justin Black's film, All Forward. And then after that, the film festival continues with 7 more films through March 7th. And those films are shown at our partner locations, our VCU, University of Richmond, Maymont, and libraries of Richmond, Henrico, and Chesterfield. And we finished up at the Virginia Museum on March 7th with our final film, which is a new Australian film called Future Council. For those who don't know, the festival is free. You don't need tickets. You don't need reservations.
So, in your experience at the festival, how have you seen it evolve over how many years has it been?
Well, it started in 2008. Ralph Nader came to that one, and then it went for a few years and then kind of dwindled out, and the Sierra Club took it over in 2011, and it became, more of a festival that was environmental issues facing the community and the planet. And I just wanted to say, for like our contest winners this year, Chad and Justin, part of what they share, both their films, is a love and curiosity and commitment to the natural world. And these films are about exploration and preservation of our natural environment. So we get all kinds of films every year. And just like the films in the festival, there are some films like Exposing the Dark Side of America's Data Centers, or Plastics People, about microplastics inside everyone, inside their cells. And, there's a lot of things out there that are very challenging environmentally, but we also want to focus on the inspirational parts of the environment, the appreciation of our natural environment, having a love for the natural world.
Well, Keith, great to hear from you. Thank you so much for being involved in the festival.
Well, thanks, Jerry. And thank you too, Chad. See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye-bye. He just mentioned the title there, Catching Pine Cones. What does that title come from?
Yeah, so it comes from Jan's musical. She wrote a musical called Run to Catch a Pine Cone. To catch a pine cone as it falls from the air is a thing of mystery and challenging thing to do. It's something that has been caught between heaven and earth. And they sort of did that with everything in their life. They went for it. They were 100%, and they caught that thing that they were going after. And so it's such an interesting life story of how to go follow your dreams and really do it.
So you mentioned that she did music. That closing song in the credits is hilarious. I won't give that surprise away, but that was pretty funny. So how much of the music in the documentary is actually hers?
So literally everything in the documentary is hers. She played about 30 different instruments. I mean, she made instruments, she fixed instruments, and spent a lot of time on it.
So I don't know if this was you or Parker, but I noticed as a video producer myself, very often you see the classic Ken Burns panning and zoom over photographs. But y'all opted, instead of doing that, you had them kind of jump around and be jaunty. Was there a reason behind that? Was there a stylistic choice for that as opposed to the classic zooms?
Yeah, just more fun. We did not think that the classic Ken Burns pan and zoom would match their style. So we really tried to pull as much of their personality as we could into this film. They were truly groundbreaking pioneers, and I think that anyone can be inspired by some part of their story. You don't have to be a rock climber or a caver to love their story, because it's just magical.
Well, I want to thank you again. Chad, this has been fascinating, and it's a great story, and congratulations on getting first place.
Thank you. It's an exceptional honor, and I think the cons would be proud.
That was Chad Heddleston, a climber and director of the documentary Catching Pine Cones, which tells the life story of pioneering rock climbers, cavers, and nature preservationists Jan and Herb Kahn. It was the first place winner in this year's RVA Environmental Film Festival and will be screening on February 22nd at Studio 23. Now let's go on down the river to talk to Justin Black about his short, All Forward, which profiles an intensive training program for river rafting guides in Richmond, where, by the way, we have the nation's only Class 3 and 4 urban whitewater. So, Justin Black, welcome back to Sifter for the Year. It's been since 2022.
Wow, surprised it's been that long. Doesn't feel like it.
Yeah. Footnote. Justin joined his fellow filmmaker Will Gemma in February 2022 to talk about Headwaters Down, their movie about their 250-mile trip down the James River, which won first prize at the festival that year. Before we get into All Forward, what happened with Headwaters Down after we talked in 2022?
We probably talked after the first film, and we ended up doing the second film, which finished our trip all the way down the James River. The two films took us from the headwaters of the James River to the Chesapeake Bay,
Right, right.
and they ended up both being picked up by PBS.
Great.
Virginia Public Media picked them up locally, and then PBS picked them up nationally. We kind of edited them down into a 2 1-hour blocks.
Now you got this new one, All Forward, which is about people being trained to be river rafting guides right here in Richmond. First of all, I got to ask you, are you a trained river rafting guide?
I am.
So was that kind of your inspiration for this, or how did you decide to make this?
Exactly. Yeah, after our first trip down the James, I got interested in the whitewater rafting scene here in Richmond, and I went through this training myself, and I became a guide going into my 5th season. Through that process, I just thought it was a really interesting and very physically demanding training process for a part-time summer job, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So I followed along, and this was the first film that I directed solo and that I'm not in.
Right, right. Give us a little quick nutshell of what is All Forward about and where did the name come from?
So All Forward is about people in Richmond going through the raft guide training program at RVA Paddle Sports. And the name All Forward actually comes from a whitewater command. So if you're the guide and you're about to go into a big hole or a big wave, you might yell All Forward, and it gets everybody to paddle forward together.
Yeah, yeah. And I have to say, because of course I watched it, and what did we do before we had GoPros and drones to shoot that kind of stuff, you know? Because there's all that amazing footage of them literally going underwater and flying up in the air. Well, they're not flying, but you know, the footage is. Were you working the drone? And obviously you weren't on the GoPros because they were doing that, but that was all your footage that you had to put together, right?
Will Gemma flies the drone. He's one of the co-owners of our production company with me. I was in the boats a lot of the time. You know, there is one really sketchy moment where we go into the log.
Right.
The GoPro was in my mouth when that happened.
Oh, wow. You were shooting it, holding it in your mouth, or you held it in your mouth just to keep it safe? Or you were hungry? I don't know what.
I was just biting on it to like hold it. I've got a foam floating case that it sits in. If I'm biting it, I can do other things with my other two hands, whether
Got
it's
it.
paddling
Okay.
or yeah. And then also I was in a filming boat in the beginning and the intro that when the guy goes into the rocks and his raft gets stuck,
Right.
I was in the back of that boat.
Oh, cool. Well, that's kind of good that you got to have these things go wrong because that makes it much more interesting than if everything had been a perfect trip.
Yeah, we figured that out with the Headwaters Down films. And you can't plan for things to go wrong, but if you're there when things go wrong, it does make for a really good scene.
I want to ask you what the biggest challenge was. And of course, it's unfortunate you had to start in March when it's chilly and kind of overcast and wasn't pretty. It got prettier later on when the weather got prettier. But what was the biggest challenge? Was it the weather? Was it the water?
Honestly, it was just trying to like build the story in a way that I felt was true to the subject matter. I was trying to balance multiple characters or people going through this process and their perspectives while also trying to make it a short film. And also, I didn't really have a budget for this film like I have on other films. It was just a passion project.
And why did you want to do this in the first place?
That's a good question. I love this community in Richmond, this boating river community that I've gotten to be a part of through becoming a whitewater guide myself. And I think the perspective of being a beginner at something is really exciting. There's other great films about the kayaking scene that, you know, there's a bunch of pro kayakers and that's awesome, but I'm not really in that scene. And I thought that this idea of, you know, these people like going through learning a whole new skill to get a job here in Richmond, it's pretty unique, you know?
Yeah.
Well, there's really no other cities in the world where you can be a teacher or a firefighter or, you know, a lawyer, and then on the weekends work a commercial rafting trip.
So what's next for All Forward?
I'm just excited to release it. And again, just to honor this really great river community here in Richmond.
Well, it's good to talk to you again. Thank you so much. You got another project you're planning on the water?
Yeah, we are currently producing a feature film about the Rappahannock tribe, specifically Chief Ann Richardson and her efforts since becoming chief over 25 years ago to get their ancestral land back.
Oh, great. Well, I'll look forward to having you back on when that's ready.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jerry.
That was Justin Black, whose short, All Forward, won second prize at this year's RVA Environmental Film Festival. It's about the intensive training program for river rafting guides in Richmond. It'll screen at the festival on February 22nd at Studio 23, and I'll have a link to it and the entire festival on the webpage for this show at TV Jerry.
Coming soon. In theaters.
Wuthering Heights. No need to mention the plot, but this new flashy version stars Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi. Crime 101. Chris Hemsworth stars as a thief who plans a multi-million-dollar heist with Halle Berry, and Detective Mark Ruffalo is on their trail. Cold Storage. Joe Keery has his first starring role since Stranger Things. It also stars Liam Neeson, taking a break from his annual revenge killer flicks to take on Lethal Aliens. Goat. Another animated film with anthropomorphic animals. It's set around a losing basketball team that takes on the titular character. Good luck, have fun, don't die. Sam Rockwell stars as a visitor from the future who comes back to save the Earth from its own devastation. This has a wacky element, maybe thanks to director Gore Verbinski, best known for the Pirates of the Caribbean films. Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie is not what you expect. It's not a documentary, but a comedy about two guys trying to book a show and accidentally traveling back to 2008. Scarlet, an animated adventure from Japan about a medieval princess and a modern-day man.
TV and streaming.
Like Water for Chocolate on HBO. This series version of the popular movie is about a romance that's thwarted by her family's traditions, forcing the woman to navigate magic flavors in the kitchen. Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette on Hulu. The latest from Ryan Murphy looks at the romance of this ill-fated couple. How to Get to Heaven from Belfast on Netflix. Three lifelong friends reunite after the death of an old classmate that turns into a dark mystery as they embark across Ireland. Soul Power, the legend of the American Basketball Association on Prime, a documentary about the association that had a 9-year rivalry with the NBA. Tyler Perry's Joe's College Road Trip on Netflix. Medea's brother Joe accompanies his grandson BJ on a trip to college. Dark Winds on AMC. This crime drama follows two Navajo police officers and returns for season 4. By the way, Song Sung Blue, the story about the Neil Diamond tribute duo, drops on Peacock, and I'll include a link to my interview with the creator of the original documentary that inspired the movie on the webpage for this show at TV Jerry. Next week, Andy Edmonds, the director of the Virginia Film Office, will be back for the 5th year to talk about the production industry in Virginia in 2025, which also included a movie that he wrote and directed. This is Jerry Williams. Thanks for listening.
For more Sifter, including literally thousands of reviews,
visit tvjerry.com.
That's a wrap.